On this Tuesday edition of Locked On Grizzlies, Damichael, Cole, and myself are still waiting on Luke Kennard, just like everybody else, trying to figure out if now is the time to panic or not. We have an NBA free agency wish list. We know Memphis is likely not to be too active on that market, but a guy can dream, and Damichael and I will dream some big dreams. And we'll close out with perhaps the biggest dream. Can Zach Edey be an effective floor spacer at the NBA level? All that and more on this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Let's lock in.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Tuesday to you and yours and to everyone that celebrates Tuesdays. It is I, Joe Mullinax, joined by Damichael Cole of the Commercial Appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee, Memphis Grizzlies beat writer. Depending on how nerdy you are as a historian, Damichael, today is technically Independence Day. At least John Adams wanted today to be Independence Day. I don't know if you knew that or not, and I'm certain that our audience doesn't know or care, so we're going to move on from that fact.
I know today is Taco Tuesday.
There you go. That matters a lot more in 2024 than when Independence Day is. Today's episode, regardless of day, whether it's Taco Tuesday or John Adams' Independence Day, is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as the playoffs wind down. The sports stop sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. We are free and available here at Locked On Grizzlies as proud members of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every single day. Like, comment, rate, review, subscribe. We had another big episode yesterday on YouTube. We're obviously on Apple, Spotify, Amazon. Wherever you get podcasts, you can get Locked On Grizzlies. Thank you so much, again, for a really strong end to June, a really wonderful start to July. We're trying to build the show. We're trying to make it better. I even got a compliment about my weight loss in the comments the other day.
Did you?
Somebody went back to the Luke Kennard trade video a year or so ago. Yeah. And they're like, oh, you used to be big. You've lost some weight. So I feel like that's an online backhanded compliment, but I guess I'll take it. Thank you. However you take in the show, however you feel about our appearance, we appreciate you guys being along with us for the ride. And if you're listening to the audio version, you don't have to deal with whatever I look like. Damichael looks awesome all the time, but I'm surprised they still pay me to be on YouTube. But I digress. Damichael Cole.
Yeah.
Should I be freaking out about Luke Kennard? We still don't have any information on this. There hasn't really been any leaks, which isn't really too strange for this front office. They don't really operate that way. But there have been players who didn't have a team option picked up who have announced their reworked contracts. How worried should Memphis Grizzlies fans be about the delay on a Luke Kennard signing as of this recording?
Yeah, people starting to wonder, right? Because it's like, if you read or saw Woj's report initially when the team option thing was put out there that the Grizzlies would likely decline it, the thing was that they were in talks on a restructured deal. And you were thinking, okay, this will be something that is done very soon. I don't know why some people were saying, they're just waiting until the start of free agency. No, that wasn't the case here.
Right.
The Grizzlies actually could have done this before free agency started, after free agency started, whatever the case may be. Here's the thing, though. The thing is, when you just use the typical context of this is something that the Grizzlies could have done before the season started. This is something they could have done when the season started. This is something they could have done as soon as the NBA Finals ended. They've had a lot of time to work on this. It has not gotten done yet. That is the only concerning part to me. The only concerning part is the fact that both sides know what they want from the standpoint of a different deal, but it's not done yet. This isn't. Now, other than that, to put people at ease a little bit, this is not the Paul George situation. We're not looking at a situation with Paul George and the Clippers where it's, hey, the Clippers are all the way over here on the money and Paul George is all the way over here on what he wants financially, and they're nowhere near done. I think the Grizzlies and Luke Kennard are actually very close. And it's now just a matter of, ironing out those details and whatnot of what that looks like. I think that the Grizzlies are still, by and large, the favorite. But again, Joe Mullinax, you're playing with fire right now.
Right.
You with fire because all it takes is one desperate. I mean, did you see what the Detroit Pistons just gave Tobias Harris?
A lot of money to just go be bad on a bad team.
All it takes is one team with a lot of cap space. Say, you know what? We're not getting a star. Luke Kennard here, 3 years, $60 million.
Oh man,
why would he say no to that? I mean, I don't think that's going to happen. Don't get me wrong. I do not think that's going to happen. But the point is, you're playing with fire, with the idea that teams are at this point of the offseason. Teams are going to start overpaying the ones that got cap space. Not a lot of teams, but you just don't want to put yourself in that position to get burned.
You would know the answer to this better than me. Yeah. Is there a benefit, like, for example, the Klay Thompson trade to the Dallas Mavericks, and maybe later on this week we'll talk about whether we should be shook by that or not. That involved a third team in the Charlotte Hornets, right? And they were exchanged. I think Josh Green is going to Charlotte. Memphis in the past has been in the mix to be a third team on trades here or there. Whether it's signing somebody outright, whether it is a trade, is there a benefit to Memphis doing whatever business they want to do first and then re-signing Luke Kennard, like bird rights, that sort of thing?
Yeah.
Is there a logical cap space reason? Because my biggest takeaway from free agency so far, and this is another thing we can talk about when the dust settles a little bit, teams are terrified of this first apron, second apron stuff.
They're terrified. Do you see it too? Oh my goodness!
And it's not
I've never seen Golden State run like this.
Like people don't want to listen. People don't want to listen to another fat bearded white guy talk about cap space on a podcast. So I'm not going to do that. Okay. But I want to stress it's very clear that they are extremely afraid of the team building consequences with especially the second apron. And is there benefits for Memphis doing whatever they do and then re-signing Kennard? Could that be the reason for the delay?
For sure. And that's the thing we have to consider because, I think these things take patience. And at the end of the day, I keep going back to, the framing of this from the standpoint of, I know the Grizzlies value Luke Kennard. You know that the Grizzlies value Luke Kennard. It starts there. I know that Luke Kennard likes playing in Memphis. So when you factor those things in, I would like to think that if another team were to have interest in Luke Kennard, he's going to come back to Memphis and say, hey, I'm coming back to you before I, try to do anything else. And the Grizzlies will probably, okay, what do we need to do? I do think that's a very realistic thing in this case scenario. I don't think he's going anywhere. I do not think he's leaving Memphis. But at the same time, you put yourself in a situation where other teams can potentially, be involved in this situation. And Joe, you mentioned, the idea of, what this could look like if other teams or if the Grizzlies are trying to be creative and, work with other teams and get other things done. That's very realistic because of the standpoint that we talked about the roster construction right now. There are guys on the roster who do not serve a big purpose to be on this roster anymore. Like, if we're being honest, some guys' times should be pretty much up. And the Grizzlies, especially on the wing, like they have too many wings. They have too many. Look at their roster. There's a reason when we talk about where the Grizzlies can add, people are talking about backup point guard and backups at center for the most part for depth. That's because everybody is playing on the wing right now. And with that being the case, I could see, a situation where you look at the Pistons, or another team with salary cap space. You could try to salary dump in one of those to one of those teams, maybe attach some assets to it and make some things happen that way. Get involved in a 3-team deal potentially, and part way with a player who's not going to be in a rotation or something like that. I could see the Grizzlies trying to get something like that done before the Luke Kennard thing because, again, here's another thing. You might end up, because right now the number is roughly like 11.8 million below the first apron, something like that, 11.5, 11.8. Basically, the $14.8 million team option that was declined was about $3 million above the first apron. What's to say Kennard's not asking for $12 million a year? Like, okay, I won't have to make 14.8, but I still want 3 years, 36. If that's something that he wants, that still puts you above the first apron, but he's still taking a pay cut. So in his mind, he may say, hey, I'm taking a pay cut here. And you saying, we don't want to tell him this, but this still puts us over the first apron. So we need to work some other things around the roster to figure that out in order to make this work. That could be the case. I would not be surprised if that's the case, Joe.
I just feel like I feel like there's a handshake agreement. And I want to stress whatever sources I used to have don't talk to me anymore. I don't really have sources. This is my intuition here. I think they have a handshake agreement. And I think that they're saying, give us the opportunity to be below the first apron, to have access to the full mid-level exception. Let us see what we can do. And then once we've exhausted all options to acquire other pieces, we'll take care of you. That to me makes sense, right? That makes sense to me. I definitely am not worried about it. I think that if there is a group that understands the math and the numbers and how these aprons work, the Memphis Grizzlies front office is probably that group. I think that they're playing the long game here, and they're waiting for things to quiet down, and then they'll make their move or two. And again, it's not going to be DeMar DeRozan isn't walking through those doors, right? Like that's not going to happen. But it can be something that is substantial depending on how they get another team to take on, for example, going off of you didn't say the name, but I can because I'm not a beat writer for the Commercial Appeal. Zaire Williams. Here, Detroit, take a couple second-round picks. Here's a Zaire Williams. Hey, he's a lottery talent. Why don't you see if he can work? You can fix him, JB Bickerstaff. It's not him, it's us. You can fix him. I think that there's possibilities out there. They're just exploring all their options. Let us know if you're worried about Luke or not in the comments below. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, Damichael and I have a wish list. It's Christmas in July here on Locked On Grizzlies. We have players that we're hopeful we long to see in Memphis Grizzlies uniforms that are, as of this recording, still available. We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Grizzlies. But first, this episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by FanDuel. I love sports. Damichael loves sports. You love sports. I love them so much, I never want them to stop. But the NHL playoffs are over. The NBA playoffs are over. We still have Major League Baseball, and we still have WNBA putting up record numbers. There's sports going on, of course, the Olympics approaching, but they're not sportsing right now like I want them to. FanDuel, thankfully, lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. Dream it, you freaking dreamers, with FanDuel. This summer, FanDuel's hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. Something for everyone every day all summer long. Head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon. Start making the most out of your summer with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, we're dreaming big dreams. Not really that big, but our free agency wish list. Stick with us. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am Joe Mullinax, joined by my co-host, Damichael Cole. He is the award-winning beat writer covering the Memphis Grizzlies for the Commercial Appeal. They're in Memphis, Tennessee. I am not an award-winning beat writer, but I have covered this team for over a decade, here, there, and everywhere. Between the two of us, you've come to a good place for Grizzlies conversation, to say the least, and we appreciate you being here. Damichael, assuming Kennard returns, like we all still do, even though it's taken maybe a little bit longer than we thought it would.
Yeah.
Making that assumption, they still could have an open roster spot. Like, let's say the hypothetical of Zaire getting shipped to Detroit happens. That gives them an open roster spot, assuming that they sign Jalen Wells, as you have hypothesized and others have as well, to that full contract, right? And then Cam Spencer's the two-way guy. You can ride. There's one roster spot left in theory. Going by that theory, we have developed a free agency wish list, a big and a wing that we would like to see. Again, obviously both wouldn't necessarily fit, but if you had to pick between these two guys, you'd be cool with either one. Damichael, let's start with your duo.
Okay. Well, you know that when I look at ads for the Grizzlies at this point, we're talking depth pieces. So we're not talking guys who are probably going to get big rotation minutes. One of these guys probably could play in the rotation, but one of them is probably just a depth piece. And the two guys for me, my big will be Daniel Tice.
I would have bet money you were going to say James Wiseman.
People want me to say it, man.
I'm proud of you for not saying it.
People want to get on the James Wiseman wave, and maybe it's a thing. People are talking about it a little bit, but Daniel Tice, playoff proven guy. Played big playoff minutes with the Celtics over the years. Played with the Pacers. Played with the Clippers. One thing that stands out to me, other than other than the fact that he fits from the standpoint of, Xavier Tillman stood out, 6'8", 6'9" guy, but had a long wingspan. Daniel Tice does as well, 7-foot wingspan. Has been a solid defender for most of his NBA career and great positional defender. He's someone who can come into Memphis and be that great third big, potentially that you need. Zach Edey is struggling in a certain matchup, or if a certain guy isn't available, he's a guy who can fit and play, 10, 15 game stretches without, a huge drop off for a low cost. That is. So he stands out for me in that way. But the one area that I pointed out is the 3-point shooting, the ability to stretch the floor as a center. This would allow him to play alongside of any of the other bigs. I think last season, small sample size, but shot a career high from 3-point range. And I think it's noteworthy because he's just started to add the 3-pointer in the last, 3-4 seasons of his career. So he's shot, I think, roughly 36, 37% from 3-point range this past year. And again, a nice third big who can knock down occasional corner 3-point shot, play strong defense. I'm on board. Now for the wing, I'm going Reggie Bullock.
I feel like you've liked Reggie Bullock for a while.
I have. I mean, he fits. You need a guy who is going to knock down shots, who's going to understand his role, and who's going to be willing to guard. Reggie Bullock was willing to do that in Dallas. He was willing to do that in Houston. And he's pretty much been willing to do that wherever he goes. He's going to guard, and he's going to shoot. The Grizzlies, they're doing their due diligence to fix the shooting woes. This would be more so a depth fix. Maybe, if one of those young guys go down, if something were to happen to a Vince Williams or whatever the case may be, it would be good to have, a proven veteran in the wings. And he can help those guys develop as well, which has become an underrated thing in today's NBA as we've the league has gotten much younger. The old teacher-like vet is not as prominent as it once was. You see that because everyone always says it's the Udonis Haslem role now. When in reality, 10 years ago, every team had these guys. But it's the Udonis Haslem role now because the Miami Heat were like one of the few teams that had that type of player. But I digress. Daniel Tice and Reggie Bullock, 2 guys from me. Joe, what you got?
I like those 2. I wouldn't be mad at either of those choices. I think I'm going to dream a little bit bigger than those 2.
Oh, you're about to use some of that mid-level exception money, huh?
Yeah, I sure
I'm just going veterans minimum. I'm playing the cheap game.
Yeah.
I want to keep that bad boy.
Your options. Yours are probably more realistic.
I want to keep that MLE for the trade deadline.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
My big man would be Mo Wagner. I like him out of Orlando. We know scoring. Memphis has liked other Wagners in the past, right? Like Franz Wagner, but he's probably not available. This is a guy who's a really good screen setter. Again, he's similar to Edey in that way. I feel like he can play that traditional big man role. He's a better ball handler than he gets credit for after watching some Orlando games this year. I was mildly surprised by that. He's solid around the rim as a finisher as well. Shot 33% from beyond the arc, so he can hit an open shot, but he's certainly not a big threat from there. I wish his rebounding was better. There's probably a reason he's still available. I think the Magic re-signed our boy Goga before they re-signed Mo Wagner, so that probably means Wagner will be on the move. That'll be interesting to watch. That would be my big if I'm dreaming a little bit bigger. And then my wing would be Caleb Martin. I like Caleb Martin coming out of Miami. To me, he kind of checks that box of being a self-made guy, that Miami Heat culture kind of concept. He's tough. Not quite Dylan Brooks, but in the same ballpark as that. He can, again, defend on the point of the attack. He also has the ability to get around screens. He's an aggressive player, shot about 35% from 3. Again, I wish that number was a little bit better, but he can
ain't
score
afraid
the ball.
To take him in the playoffs. Yeah.
No, he is not. And that's the type of guy. Again, we're talking about someone who should not take any minutes from anybody except maybe whoever your 10th man is, right? Like if Santi Aldama is struggling one night or something like that, maybe Wagner plays or Caleb Martin plays, one of those types. And again, it would take more than the veterans minimums for these guys. I don't know that you need the full mid-level exception, but you're definitely going over the veterans minimum like Damichael was talking about. I like the idea of having that depth because goodness gracious knows, Damichael, we can say all we want that the Grizzlies are going to be healthy. History would tell us that there's going to be injury issues, and I would feel better about a Caleb Martin going in and filling those minutes as opposed to a Zaire Williams.
Yeah, you want at this point the Grizzlies are in a stage where they want proven guys. You know,
right.
I want guys on this roster. Like I think we both had that in common. Like Reggie Bullock, we've seen him make shots in the playoffs. You know, went to the Western Conference Finals. You know, with Dallas that year. Daniel Tice, Eastern Conference Finals. You know, with Boston Celtics. You know, playoff runs. And same thing, kind of along the same lines with the guys that you were saying, like guys who have experience. And Mo Wagner to a lesser degree, but he's got starting experience.
And still a playoff team, Orlando.
He was on a playoff team for sure. So I agree with you along those lines. But yeah, I think we're past the days where your 14th and 15th guys are just developmental guys. You know, if Jalen Wells is down there, he's a rookie. Yeah, that's fine. But you know, the Grizzlies have they've done a decent job on development. You know, there's the reason a lot of these guys are on their second contracts, and their second contracts are coming up. So now it's time to take advantage of that. You know, you're in your window now.
You're not saving James Wiseman, okay? There's no saving James Wiseman. If we're talking about guys that fit the Memphis Grizzlies culture, you know, I know he's a Memphis guy technically, or at very least a Tennessee guy.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't fit the Memphis Grizzlies culture. He just doesn't. If he was something that was worth investing in from a development standpoint, I'm pretty sure he was playing for the Detroit Pistons this past season, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The Detroit Pistons moved on from that guy. They're trying to lose, and they moved on from James Wiseman. That tells me all I need to know personally. But, you know, I know there will be people in the comments that tell me how wrong I am, which is fine. I've been being told I'm wrong since 2012.
Gets a lot of love around here.
Yeah. So, but strangely, I've been getting like good compliments on social media and in the comments here and there. Like Joe's cooking or these good takes. That's strange. Usually people don't tell me I have good takes. Chef Joe. Mwah, right? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And I promise not to do that ever again. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, we'll close out this episode. Damichael has a great piece up at the Commercial Appeal. He's been talking to folks about Zach Edey, and there is some positive energy around what Zach Edey could be that maybe we haven't seen just yet. We'll talk about that next here on Locked On Grizzlies. But first, I want to remind you about Locked On Sports Today. Locked On Grizzlies isn't the only great podcast. We're a part of a grand, amazing network of podcasts, NBA, NFL, NHL, MLB, college. Literally almost any sport under the sun probably has a Locked On podcast affiliate. And we are proud to be representing the Grizzlies. Hopefully you're checking out all the other great shows through the Locked On Sports Today channel over on YouTube, the first of its kind 24/7 streaming channel. Plus you can check it out on Amazon Fire under the free TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today. Check it out after this show is over, which will be soon. But first, we got to talk Zach Edey. Stick with us. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I am Joe Mullinax, joined by my co-host, Damichael Cole, award-winning Memphis Grizzlies beat writer for the Commercial Appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee. We've had a great show so far. We're not worried about Luke just yet. We dream some big dreams in NBA free agency, or at least big for the Memphis Grizzlies. Damichael, you've been talking to folks about the number 9 pick in the 2024 NBA draft, Mr. Zach Edey, that massive man that you mentioned earlier on this week. Mm-hmm. He has a skill that I don't think gets talked about enough.
Yeah.
He checks a lot of touch boxes around the basket, right? Like he has Valanciunas-esque hands, good the finish. Ability to score. He's a good finisher. He has good post moves. It's not like he's just being thrown the ball and dunking. Like I saw somebody comp him to Yao Ming. And again, after my Klingon heartbreak was gone, I've watched more Edey tape, and I remember Yao Ming. I'm that old. I see it. I think Yao was better, but I see the comp, if that makes sense. Yao Ming isn't going out there chucking up threes. So it's possible, though, and again, this is based off of your own conversations that you're having with folks that know Zach Edey well, that maybe we're underselling what Edey can be as a floor spacer.
Yeah, I talked to Sam King, over at the Journal and Courier, who he covers Purdue basketball Covered Zach Edey all season long, covered him, a lot since he got to college, and especially the last 2 seasons. And we did a Q&A. You could check out the whole thing over at commercialappeal.com. But one of the things that stood out to me, and Joe is kind of referencing here, is, I asked, is there something offensively, to Zach's game that we aren't really talking about that much or something like that? And here's what he said. He said, one thing that nobody seems to talk about or people seem to knock Zach Edey for is that all of his shots come around the rim. He was like, in the college level, Purdue's coach Matt Painter. He said, Matt Painter is an idiot if he doesn't take advantage of a 7'4" guy that shoots 70% getting layups and dunks. Zach Edey can shoot. I've seen him in practice knock down 10 threes in a row, sit there and shoot 20 to 25 threes, and hit 15 to 20 of them with regularity. I think that is an element that people will see that they haven't seen on film yet. Listen up, Joe. One thing about Taylor Jenkins, you play on the roster. You pretty much got the green light.
But I do think it's important to point out these are the best basketball players on the planet, right? Like I have a shout out to the old man. Shout out to the Old Man Basketball League, the pickup game that I'm a part of every couple of weeks. We were talking the other day about the trash talk of Brian Scalabrine, saying that he's closer to LeBron James than a guy that he was playing pickup with at the Y or something like that than he is to Scalabrine. And you don't realize that. And that's true, right? Like, if you are one of the best players on the planet, you're getting paid millions of dollars to play basketball. You can probably go to a random gym and shoot some threes and make a lot of them. Does that make you hesitate? There's a difference between being in a gym at Purdue and chucking up threes during a practice and then being in front of 17,000 people in game 1 of the Western Conference semifinals against the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah, it is. And you're not wrong. Again, you're talking to someone who saw Steven Adams knock down 3-pointers.
There you go. Great example.
In a practice. But there was some confidence in the way that he said that. I've seen Steven Adams knock down some threes. I haven't seen Steven Adams hit 10 threes in a row and hit 15 to 20 out of 25 attempts, as Mr. King was alluding to there. But at the same time, I do agree with the fact that, look, Shaq says it all the time, and Shaq has some wild takes. So for me to agree with Shaq here, it's saying something. But one thing that I do agree with Shaq, and Charles Barkley says it too, if you're a big man and you're dominating, they used to say it a lot with Joel Embiid. Like, if no one can stop you inside, why are you going to the 3-point line? So as long as he's dominating in the paint and things like that, he doesn't have to go to the 3-point line that much. Now, there are some some things there where you could take advantage of it, whereas it's, jaw driving to the basket and, kind of inserting some 5-out, concepts with him in the lineup, and as well as all the screen and roll stuff that they're going to do, the post stuff that they're going to do and all that. So I do think it gives you more offensive variance, but at the same time, it's not nothing that I want to see them lean on too much. But it's a good thing to hear. I think so. Because the Grizzlies right now, look at the bigs. None of them shot above league average from 3-point. I think Santi is due for a progressive season because Shanti's shooting stroke just look.
Say that 3 times fast.
Yeah. He can shoot the basketball. So I think he's due for a positive season where he shoots 37% or so. But other than that, Jaren, I feel like it is what it is at this point. Jaren's going to have those heater games, and he's going to have those games where you're pulling your hair out. Like, Jaren, just get to the basket. What are you doing? Why are you shooting 7 3-pointers? It's going to happen. But Zach Edey to have the ability to knock down those 3-pointers is definitely noteworthy because there's probably going to be some trailer. The Grizzlies like to run. He's a big fella. So he might be trailing sometimes, and Ja tossed that ball back to him, and he might get a couple opportunities to get those type of shots. I think again, it does nothing but, to me, it provides more offensive versatility for a team that needs it.
I'm more interested in him as a passer out of the post because double teams are going to come. They're going to collapse on him, crash. How can he, skip pass across to the opposite elbow, find a guy there from beyond the arc, like a Luke Kennard, for example? How that will look is more interesting to me than him as a three-point shooter. But I'm not going to completely write it off. I just want, I don't want to say lazy because that's not fair. I believe Mr. King, I believe you said his last name was. I believe him when he says that he saw this guy do these things. But I also know at the college level, he shot 1-3 in his entire career and it banked it in. Right? So I agree with the idea that if you're 7'4", 300 pounds, and there's nobody else built like you in college basketball, why would you do anything else? I'm not disputing that. He was a 2-time National Player of the Year doing exactly what he did. I just need to see it first, if that makes sense. And I feel like watching his game, the more natural lane to progress is once those doubles come, that how he passes out of it, how he finds the open slasher at the basket, the open guy from three. That's going to carry more weight for me. But we'll see how it plays out, not just in Summer League, but obviously going into training camp.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. And Joel, I mean, just because you brought it up, I will point that out. That is something that we also talked about as well, the idea of him passing out of double teams. We know that's something, for example, Jaren Jackson Jr., he has struggled with that, right? We talked a lot about Jaren as a passer, and this was one of the other things that we did address in this story as well, Joe. And here's what he said because I asked about the free throw shooting. Like if you watched, this man Zach Edey shoot free throws in college. I mean, he attempted like 11 attempts per game. Like he was living at the free throw line. And then King said, at the college level, you're almost at his mercy. If you didn't foul him, he was going to score. That's because he was so much bigger and stronger. In the NBA, it's a different game. And then here it is, Joe. He said he did seem to struggle against a couple teams that would send a second guy in there and kind of to his blind side and kind of rip the ball away and not fouling. Northwestern was very successful at that, and also Ohio State. There's definitely a model or a blueprint out there that teams are going to have to adapt to and not send him to the line. He's very efficient if he can draw fouls and get to the line. So it sounds like that is the weakness right now. Again, so it seems like you're right on the money in terms of he's going to have to learn how to pass out of those double teams because we know in the NBA they come from all different angles. You got these 6'7" long dudes that can take up plenty space. Like when you think, oh, someone's open, let me throw it across the court, and they're flying and they intercept the pass. So it's a whole different ballgame.
And they're athletic and long enough that if they do come and flash on a double team in the post and you make that skip pass and it's not fast enough or it's not at the right angle, they can retrace and either pick the ball off or at the very least play some defense on an open shooter as opposed to that guy being, completely open at the college level. I want to see development in that area. And that's something that I think, again, not every NBA team is going to do that to him. I want to stress that. There's some teams that are so analytically driven, they're just going to say, screw it. Like I'll take him beating me up with twos as opposed to the Memphis Grizzlies trying to shoot the threes that they shoot every game, right? They were top 5 in 3-point attempts this past season. I'm curious to see how he adapts to that. And it'll be a game-to-game thing, depending usually, I would imagine, on if they have a legitimate center or not. They won't have really anybody in the NBA that's as big and strong as Edey, but there's guys that are comparable, right? And that is an important line to distinguish. Thank you guys so much for being with us on this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Damichael, hopefully on our Wednesday episode, we will have some updates on what's going on with Luke Kennard, maybe some free agency rumblings for Memphis. Finally, there's some folks that are being a little bit impatient out there. We'll have a better idea of where they're going in terms of this offseason. Again, summer league's coming up. Lots of different angles we can take.
Yeah. Maybe we should talk about that too. The fan base just to the people who are. I know some people understand the situation, but for those who don't, I mean, we'll talk about it because this whole they're not doing anything. They're
not exactly sure what you want them to do.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so that's something that maybe we tackle on tomorrow's show. Thank you guys so much for being with us on today's show. Like, comment, rate, review, and most importantly, subscribe on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, literally anywhere you get a podcast. Make sure you're checking us out making us a part of your NBA and Memphis Grizzlies content consumption each and every day. Check out Locked On Sports Today, the first of its kind 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Go check out Locked On Sports Today. Go check out all the great work that Damichael Cole is doing over at the Commercial Appeal. And most importantly, make sure you're checking out Locked On Grizzlies tomorrow. For Damichael, I am Joe. Amazon, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you get podcasts, continue to make Locked On Grizzlies a part of your consumption. See ya.